Who's ready to make the best Sorcerer build even besterer? Hello, my fellow sorcerers. Welcome and salutations. I hope you are having a lovely day as we all try our best to not look over at Spiritborn, making every other class look like a joke. But I do not care, for I am a sorcerer at heart, and I will always be one. There shall be no flavor of the month switching here. I will be pushing sorcerer to its maximum, because god damn it, there's still like at least a couple of us, right? For real though, I am still having a lot of fun on the Sorcerer, playing new Lightning Spear and hitting ridiculously hard in the process, as you've already seen. I'm up to pit 80, comfortably melting through the unique bosses on Torment 4, farming those mythic uniques, making infernal hordes and the Undercity, and, well, you know, all of the game modes a joke. And to show you just how upgraded this true endgame Lightning Spear Frozen Orb hybrid is, on the left is the build I'm about to present to today, and on the right is the version from a couple days ago, the starter version. And we're off! And, oh, in like 6 seconds, this new one today has killed the Pit 65 boss, and the other one is still kind of going. So yeah, there is a lot of delicious little tweaks, swaps around, and in some cases fundamental changes, and actually in other cases what I'm pretty sure is just an actual bug that we're going to take righteous advantage of. And everything that you're seeing and has been seen here, I am still not on any kind of min-maxed gear. Of course, Forgotten Souls were a huge bottleneck, better now with the hotfix, but a lot of my gear is still 4 out of 12 and by no means perfect. And while I've got a very lucky GA Conjuration Mastery Winterglass, it's a minimum roll. I could be spawning 30% more Lightning Spears. I could have 30% more stacks of Conjuration Mastery, which is obviously a huge amount of damage I'm not getting thanks to the minimum roll I have here. So yeah, the ceiling is still way above, but the structure that I'm about to share, the setup is the best, and you can, like I will be doing, grind away, improving it bit by bit with better ancestrals, better rolls, better masterworking, and so on and so forth. Yeah, this really does get the job done, and as I said last time, I honestly really do prefer playing like this than just smashing the Lightning Spear button. It's nice to be throwing out an actual skill in Frozen Orb, seeing it blitz everywhere, and it's just such a wonderful speed farming machine. Especially in Infernal Hordes, it just feels really good. And then something like Undercity, very much just stomping it to the end, and just the wide-reaching damage of it is actually even better than Spiritborn. Yes, we can't compete on damage, but on just mass area clearing trash at ridiculous distances, this really is it. If only by a little bit. And one of the switch-ups that you'll already be seeing in the background is that we will be evade teleporting very rapidly, making this, as I just said, a absolute speed farming machine, and a very even more fun build to actually pilot, and really there's a lot of trickiness going on here that I'm very happy with. But in any case, let's get into the upgrades that, with perfect gear, will lead you down the road of tens of billions of Lightning Spear explosion damage. Beginning then, as we always do, with the skill tree, and beginning the skill tree with what we mostly always do, 2 points in Firebolt, and not the enchantment slot use today. Oh yes, we're going to be doing something a lot more fun, and a lot more mobile. Over to your core skills then, where we want to max out your Frozen Orb, into Enhanced, and then finally into Greater for that lovely vulnerableness. Get yourself potent warding, as many points into this as you need to be res capped, otherwise you can take points out and spend them elsewhere. Then we want 3 out of 3 in elemental dominance. We might as well get more damage out of Frozen Orb, even if it's not the majority of the numbers we're pumping. Over to your defensives, where we get Flame Shield. The immunity is just lovely to stand your ground against echo attacks in PID and just kind of ignore things, but also we do need a fire skill on our bars for both Talrasha and efficient enlightenment procking. Teleport in to enhanced and then shimmering, and that is going to be our first enchantment slot. You see, teleport is not on the bars, and I'll explain why in a moment, but we essentially, TLDR, don't have room for it, but we still can't not be teleporting because it's still too effective of a tool, so we are going to be evade teleporting. Then get yourself Ice Armor into enhanced and finally mystical for the damage boost, mainly against staggered bosses. Then we go over to our conjurations, where we get familiar and then just enhanced. We will only be spawning fire familiars, so the 10% multiplicative extra lightning isn't going to be a thing, and these fire familiars are going to be our essentially firebolt enchantment. We've got, as I said, and I talked about it in the PTR and then the review build, and it's still not been fixed, if it's ever going to be a bugged way to make this happen, and again I'll talk about it in a moment. So just the 1 point in enhanced. Then get your max out of your lucky hit, grab your ice blades into enhanced and then summoned, and then we're going to have lightning spear, enhanced and then invoked. Also grab your max conjuration mastery for that lovely, well, everything that this is all about. The stacking of this is the heart if the splintering energy is the soul. What am I even saying? 3 out of 3 into your mana shield and protection for that lovely defensiveness, and then at this point we can go back up and get the other enchantment slot, which will be your Frozen Orb, just for more orbs, more explosions, more damage, more goodness. There really isn't a better option, honestly. Then we go to your masteries, where we just want the Inner Flames into full Devouring Blaze for the lovely critical damage. We're all about that with Splintering Energy, and then we move straight on. Get all of your Frostiness to help Frozen Orb, and in Hoarfrost's case, help Splintering Energy too against those chilled and frozen and staggered bosses, and then get 3 out of 3 in Elemental Synergies. It's just a bit more damage, we might as well, we have the points. Get that lovely free cooldown reduction, grab yourself Unstable Currents, which we now will be using for the attack speed and the extra few little spears we can get out from it, and prime for said attack speed. Coursing Currents into Electrocution just for more tanky survivability, which we will need, as this is definitely a more fragile build, but still very inherently hard to die. And then Enlightenment as our key passive. It's just ridiculously powerful and absolutely phenomenal to have in our arsenal. That then is your skill tree. Let's talk gear then, before we get into what's actually going on and how this all works. Now, of course, this is the ideal ultra endgame. You've got everything, Lightning Spear, Frozen Orb, ultimate build, so I'm going to be presenting it as such. If you don't have the mythic uniques, if you don't have the ability to swap to this, then use the version from a couple of days ago and you will be fine, and then aim towards this one. So, we want ourselves aspect-wise Splintering Energy on specifically a two-handed staff, so we can double its value. That has to be there. Then you want yourself Frozen Orbit on your gloves, so we get that extra explosion, so an extra proc of the cooldown reduction. And then finally you want Orange Herald on your legs, so we can have maximum stable currents uptime for that lovely attack speed. And hey, because we will be pressing Lightning Spear and so on, you know, we might get lucky and get an extra Lightning Spear out, but the attack speed is just too good to ignore. Essentially, more Frozen Orbs, more cooldown reduction, more Lightning Spears, so it does feed back into itself. Then, for those uniques, we want ourselves Rakenov's Wake. This is twofold. We want the cooldown reduction because we're not really getting it from a lot of places, and of course cooldown reduction is everything to every Sorcerer build, but especially Lightning Spear spamming. But we also need the all resist to elements because we are going to struggle to make res cap without it. It's a very neat little solution to a lot of problems, and something I did and showed you guys way back in the PTR. In any case, then we have ourself Raiment of the Infinite, though this is actually a stand-in because the mythic unique Shroud of False Death isn't currently available in the game, and that will be in this slot when it is, so this is the next best until then. But when Shroud of False Death comes back, get it. Like, say that like you can just go out and pick up mythic unique, but when you eventually do have it drop for you, you want to wear it instead of Raiment. Then we have ourselves Tal Rashes. It's just brilliant in every capacity. I don't need to sell this item to you. It's one of the best rings in the game, and I've still not found a good ancestral one, because the effect is what matters. An ancestral one with like 15% is just not going to be as good, so it's still this one. In any case, then you have your Fractured Winterglass to make it all function, to fuel that engine, and if you can, really look for the GA on Conjuration Mastery and a high chance to spawn a random conjuration when Frozen Orb explodes. They are both very important, everything else a little bit less so. Then we get to our mythic uniques. We want Ring of Starless Skies as our second ring slot, ideally GA'd with attack speed, and you will be all good to go there. And then the other new mythic, Hair of Perdition, for just, I mean, look at it. We love the lucky hit, we love the critical strike chance, we love the 60% multiplicative damage, and the 200% damage to demons and angels ain't too shabby when it can apply. Of course, the angel one's much less so than the demons at the moment. So that's your basic gear setup. When it comes to the affixes on the actual legendary pieces, on your staff, you want very specifically intelligence, maximum life, and critical strike damage. On your legs, you want very specifically intelligence, maximum life, and armor, so we can make our armor cap. On your gloves, you ideally want attack speed, critical strike chance, and critical strike damage, and the most important one of them is critical strike damage. I've just not had a better pair of gloves drop yet. Everything else, of course, is unique, so not a factor. And then for your gems and your runes, you want to have critical strike damage in your weapon, very important, triple armor in your jewelry, and then intelligence in the one non-runed piece of gear. Then, for your runes, you want to have yourself Yule Ohm. Essentially, cast a skill with a cooldown, and then Barbarian Warcry for that lovely damage boost. And then, also, if you are not at 100% crit chance, you want to use Tamgar for cast an on-channel skill and gain crit chance. If you don't actually need this, then you can shuffle it up with a different rune of your choice. There's nothing absolutely critical that needs to go in. Then, just the note on, yes, your armor cap, make sure you do have at least 1,000 armor, and make sure you do have at least 70% resistances. Of course, I don't have potent warding on. If I was to use a attack, there we go, up to your 70%, and all is well. So, moving on from that then, let's actually discuss how we're playing this. First and foremost, the bug that we're kind of abusing to have burning on enemies. You see, for whatever reason, when Unstable Currents is on and you spawn a familiar, it's always a fire familiar. So if I actually get it going, use the Unstable Currents, you will see that, look, I am spawning a load of fire familiars, and they're going to act as my burning. He's flitting about the place, setting everything on fire, and that's really, really nice. Look, everything is burning. So as long as we can keep Unstable Currents active nearly all of the time, which is what the Orange Herald is for, we have fire familiars all of the time, and thus we have burning all of the time. So it's a really nice little way to do it that frees up the enchantment slot for said teleport. That's the third secret benefit of Rakenov's Wake, because the attacks reduce evade cooldown. So the reason we don't have teleport on our bars is we need Frozen Orb, obviously. We need to have Unstable Currents for the reasons we just talked about, and the attack speed is just lovely. You can really pump them out. We need to have Flame Shield, because we need a fire skill for Tal Rashes, and then Enlightenment stacking. We have to have Lightning Spear, obviously. We want to have Ice Blades, because we can only have 3 max if we don't have it on our bars, and 6 max with it on our bars, which is huge, both for Conjuration stacks and for cooldown reduction, which then leaves one final slot. Ice Armor gives us some much needed survivability and indeed a little bit of a damage up with its skill enhancement. So we don't really have a good place for teleport. Now, if you really want to use it and cast it normally, you can use it instead of Ice Armor, but we might as well evade it. Because we are reducing the cooldown of it with our attacks, thanks to Rekonoffs, as you can see, we can just progress really fast through everything that we're clearing, and we can teleport a lot more than if we actually just had it on our bars. So we kind of get to have the best of both worlds here, and that's what's going on, and it works really well. Other than that, use Lightning Spear on cooldown, use Ice Blade on cooldown, save your Ice Armor and Flame Shield for when you want to tank/ignore something, and then spam out your Frozen Orb as you please, using your Teleport Evade to go quickly through whatever it is you are clearing. Obviously, pay attention to your enlightenment, try and use alternate elements, so if you've just done lightning, then use ice, then use lightning, then use ice, then use fire, then use ice, and so on and so forth. Get that to 100, keep it up as much as you can, and otherwise spam away and enjoy the massive numbers and massive damage. Mercenaries then, we want on Reinforcement, Vajana, and you simply want Bloodthirst for the 10% attack speed, unless you are already somehow attack speed capped, in which case use something else, but you likely won't be because we're using a staff and there's not a lot of places we can get attack speed from. For your main mercenary, we want ourselves Rahia, and chiefly we want him for the extra 15% all res. Without that, I wouldn't be capped. And the reason that is because of Paragon point assignment. I could have more points in all res on the Paragon tree, and if I got 15% more, if I had more Paragon levels, then I could not use him, at which point you can make a switch. That said, he gives you a lot of survivability, and this build is definitely a lot more fragile than the previous version, so I find it really comes in handy. And the thing is, you're still gaining fairly good alternating uptime on 15% multiplicative increased damage and 25% multiplicative increased damage. So it's not like you're really losing out on much, and I honestly, unless you need something specific, would recommend this mercenary setup for nearly every build in the game. Tempering wise then, on your staff, you want Chance of Frozen Orb to cast twice, and critical strike damage, pretty cut and dry. On your gloves, you want critical strike damage, and chance to freeze enemies. Then on your legs, you want to have percent armor, and then ideally chance to immobilize, though I got unlucky and bricked it on stun. For your Masterworking, you want to just hit the critical strike damage, ideally the big one that you've tempered on. You want cooldown reduction on Rakonoff's Wake. The legs don't really matter too much. Critical strike damage on your gloves, glass cannon on your raiment, and then critical strike chance on your perdition to get up to 100%. On your winterglass, of course, conjuration mastery, cooldown reduction on your Tal Rashes, and then attack speed on your Ring of Starless Skies. Lastly then, let's talk Paragon board. Now, of course, I will say this initially, you want to take as much all resist as you need to make the 70% gap, otherwise we will be as lean as possible with our points. First and foremost, up and right to get Elementalist, and then we go up through Resilience to the glyph slot, where we will find Elementalist. Lovely increase in damage, and the amping of these two nodes, very, very nice. Essentially, the 5 glyphs that I have on here are just kind of the 5 best Sorcerer glyphs, only really missing Control, and you can use Control instead of one of them if you really want to. In any case, let's continue up. You want to get Elemental Balance, grab the non-physical damage, and then we go right up through Studied. The reason I've gone right instead of left is because I needed a little bit of extra dex to activate a rare node, and that's another thing to take note. Something like this over here, Elemental Balance, I'm Thor 30 out of 435. So everywhere I can, I have deliberately taken the dex path to pump it, and once I have a couple more Paragon levels, I will activate this. A good example is here. I could have gone the 2 willpower route and then got it, or I could go the dex and int, so I've gone the dex and int to have the dex for this, so keep that in mind with your pathing. In any case, up into the first board, which is going to be Fundamental Release, arranged so the glyph is closest to the gate, and we want to head right up through Lightning Cutter, and then straight to the glyph, where we will find Tactician, and then straight along to Elemental Balance, grab the extra non-physical damage. Then we go back to this willpower, straight up through the 3 decks that will finish activating it. At this point, if you're swapping to a multiple mythic endgame build, I'm going to assume that you're all legendary glyphed up, otherwise you are going to struggle on some of Torment 4, and then we go all the way up to this int. Initially, head right and get overdrive, and head left and get electromagnetism. Straight up through the legendary node, heading right to kindling, left to suffused resilience, get as much of this as you need, always get just the pure damage reduction, the all res if you require it, like I do, specifically these two. Then we want to head up from this intelligence into the next board at the top, which is going to be your Frigid Fate. Heading up to this deck, right to this int, then to the glyph, where we will find ourselves Flame Feeder for that lovely 10% multiplicative increase, go up and grab your Elemental Favor, and then we want to head left through Weakness all the way round to Frigid Fate and get that active. Then we want to head right from here and grab ourselves Oppressive. The vulnerable damage is nice and the damage reduction is very much needed. Then we want to head right from Overdrive to this gate here, continuing all the way to this Willpower, head straight up to Unleash in this slot here, lovely extra bit of damage increase too, and then grab Tactical, and then up and Elemental Balance, and the extra non-physical if you have the spare points. I will go over where to put your points if you do have more points than me. For now, we go down from this Willpower, grab Ruinous and all the extra attack speed around here, and then we want to head specifically all the way over here through into this damage reduction, and then get this damage reduction here. If you need the all resist, it's an extra double up, but that 5% extra damage reduction is really, really nice. That said, if you don't need the extra all resist, you can save on all of these points and spend them elsewhere for more damage, which is something I may be doing soon. In any case, we then go over to our final board, left of Electromagnetism to the gate, and this is going to be your Burning Instinct board. Arranged so the glyph is in the top right, and initially we're going to go to the Strength and then up to the glyph, where we will find Destruction. This is our single best glyph. It is our most important glyph, especially for this build. You want to level it to max as soon as possible before any other glyph, and get every single bit of dexterity in its range to pump it as much as we can. And along the way, get Cinders, Explosive, and all the extra critical strike damage. Then we want to head past this dex all the way to Kindling, and then more critical strike damage, and then down here from this Strength, we want to head to Safeguard. The extra armor is nice for making the cap, and the damage reduction is very, very useful. So that's the board in my current state, the layout and glyphs. If you have more points than I do, you essentially just want to go around and fill everything in. Get this extra vulnerable damage, get this more damage reduction from burning, get this more damage reduction from vulnerable, get this more damage to burning. Essentially just get all of the extra magic nodes that I don't have at the moment, like this non-physical here too, the extra damage to elites, there's a little bit more damage to elites down here. Just kind of fill out all these little bits of damages that we're close to. Then if you've got even more, you can get something like Smoldering Embers for the damage reduction from burning. That'll help you feel even sturdier. And then you can go over here, get even more damage reduction from vulnerable, and then you're kind of stretching, and eventually you can go get Enchantment Master, so you can teleport more often, throw more frozen orbs. That is not bad either. So there you have it, Paragon-wise. That then is that, the peak form of Frozen Orb Lightning Spear, which is by far and away our most reliable, approachable build of the season to just get things done and destroy everything you need it to in Torment 4. There is ways to kind of shift and push, but you need ridiculous things like a Unicorn Amulet with 2 different passive skill ranks, and it just kind of gets absurd, and look, we're all looking up to Spirit Bonds anyway. That said, there is plenty of other builds I do want to explore. One that's kind of failed, which I'm really sad about, that I really thought might reach some ridiculous heights, but still watch this space. For now though, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage. Goodbye.